Hello and welcome to another Magic Online video. I am your host today, Todd Anderson, and I am kind of joined by my wife, Callie. She's more so just hanging out in the background, maybe cutting some jokes every now and then. Say, hey, Callie.
Hi, Callie.
That's the joke. Alright. Well, today we're going to be playing a Legacy Daily event, and I'm going to be playing Deathblade. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Legacy, Deathblade is an Esper control deck that utilizes Deathrite Shaman to fuel a bevy of cheap spells, which includes Stoneforge Mystic, Vendilion Click as the other creatures of choice, if you will. A lot of the older versions played things like True Name Nemesis, but with Treasure Cruise popping up everywhere, I wanted to have threats that could actually die. I don't actually mind it when my creatures die when Treasure Cruise is the card that I'm kind of building towards, as opposed to, you know, my actual threats. This version of the deck, we're going to be full on Thoughtseizing. I think Thoughtseize is one of the better cards against combo decks, so we're going to have 4 copies of that. Only 2 copies of Spell Pierce. I'm not a huge fan of this card, but I do like it early on to just disrupt opposing brainstorms. You know, knock their Treasure Cruises later in the game if they cost, you know, 3 or 4 mana or something. They're also just, you know, good spells against combo decks. 4 copies of Ponder and Brainstorm to help fuel the graveyard so that we can Treasure Cruise early. And 4 copies of Swords of Plowshares because that's just the best removal spell. Deathrite Shaman is actually fantastic in the format right now because he's great at helping you control your opponent's graveyard to keep them from Treasure Cruising. Now, not every deck plays Treasure Cruise, but luckily Deathrite Shaman is just a very good Magic card by itself. It will let you do some cool things like casting it on turn 1, followed by Thoughtseize into Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2. It allows you to ramp into Vendilion Click or Lingering Souls, and, you know, it can just exile a land from your opponent's graveyard to help you cast things like Treasure Cruise. The rest of the deck, we do have 1 copy of Umezawa's Jitte and a Batterskull to go along with Stoneforge Mystic. The 1 Lingering Souls is just a way to help keep enough creatures for us to actually utilize our equipment with Batterskull and Jitte. Zealous Persecution is a nod to the increase in both Young Pyromancer and Elf combo on Magic Online. I think both those decks are pretty good, and Zealous Persecution is a reasonable counter to it. But yeah, that's most of the deck. The main deck has 11 fetches to help facilitate Treasure Cruise, as well as make sure we hit all the right colors. 2 Wastelands and a Crocus as our specialty lands. But let's take a look at the sideboard. Since Magic Online does have a lot of mono red decks, I'm playing 2 copies of Blue Elemental Blast, and I've played upwards of 3 of this card, but I didn't want to skew too heavily. I do think Blue Elemental Blast is good enough to play in multiple, since it does have a few different matchups where it's actually good, such as Painter Grindstone, Sneak and Show, it's okay, and Mono Red, as well as like Goblin sometimes. But Blue Elemental Blast, you know, maybe you don't need to play 2 of these in your local Legacy tournament unless there's a lot of burn, but this deck has a really tough burn matchup, so I do like having a couple of these. 2 Flusterstorms to help complement the Spell Pierces against Storm combo and things like that. A Jace the Mind Sculptor against things like Miracles, just a constant source of card draw. The 4th Force Will against combo decks. 3 Meddling Mage against combo decks. 2 more Zealous Persecution against opposing Young Pyromancer / Elf combo decks. 3 Relic of Progenitus against both graveyard strategies as well as opposing Treasure Cruise decks. This does shrink their graveyard every single turn, and when your opponent doesn't really have a whole lot going on, you can just crack it and draw a card, which is pretty sweet. And then 1 Sword of Feast and Famine that can come in a variety of matchups, but mostly it's just another equipment to make Stoneforge Mystic good. But there are a reasonable number of matchups where you don't actually want to surge up Umezawa's Jitte very much with the Stoneforge Mystic, and having the Sword of Feast and Famine to bring in means that you don't actually have to side out any copies of Stoneforge Mystic. It allows you to keep your threat density up, and it makes you, or it gives you access to a tutor target for Stoneforge Mystic where you actually have a reasonable thing to get. I've played a lot of Deathblade over the last couple of years, and the deck's pretty solid. It has changed significantly in its incarnations over the past 12 months, and I've played everything from Dark Confidant to True Name Nemesis, and now just playing Treasure Cruises. But I like this deck a lot. I've been playing it a reasonable amount, and hopefully we will do well in this daily event. But we'll be right back for that. See you soon.
Goodbye.